Hi friends, how are you today? My name is Bailey Sarian, and today is Monday, which means it's Murder, Mystery, and Makeup Monday. Hi. If you are new here, hi, my name is Bailey Sarian, and on Mondays I like to sit down and talk about a true crime story that's been heavy on my noggin, and I do my makeup at the same time. It keeps me busy, you know? If you're interested in true crime and you like makeup, I would say subscribe, because I'm here for you on Mondays. Yeah. On my last murder mystery makeup, I was reading the comment section and someone said you should do a lime green makeup look. So that's my goal today. That's what I'm going to do. And if you're ever curious to know what I'm using, I'll list it down in the description box. But other than that, let's talk about today's story because it's interesting. Let me tell you. It makes for a really interesting discussion. And you'll see. So in the comment section, I'll be like reading what you're saying because it's interesting. Cannibal. Let's talk about it. Great. So today we're talking about the strange story of this guy named Gilberto Valle. And, you know, he's a man who once swore to protect and serve the people of New York City. You know, he was known to his friends and his colleagues as a dedicated police officer. But Gil, he harbored a sinister double life that would shock everyone. Oh, my God. He was dubbed the Cannibal Cop by the media, and his arrest revealed a web of twisted fantasies, detailed plans, and a very dark descent into the world of cannibalism. You know, if you've been watching me for a long time, you know cannibalism is always like an interest. Is that okay to say? Am I allowed? Yeah, like it just fascinates me because it's so far removed of anything I've ever experienced, right? Cannibalism, right? Okay, great. So, you know, it's like, was Gil a monster or was he just a man with a dangerous imagination? Well, we'll see. I'm just going to say right off the bat, I know YouTube is going to demonetize my ass today because we are talking so much about cannibalism and it gets real dark. If you have kids around, maybe don't let them listen. Put earmuffs on them because it gets pretty heavy. So, Gilberto Valle III was born on April 14th, 1984 in Queens, New York. He had siblings. I think he was the oldest brother, and he had like two younger siblings. It was said that in the household, his parents, they fought a lot, and they ended up getting separated when Gil was like 5 years old. Now, I have to say right off the bat that Gil, he actually wrote a book after all this happened. So he wrote a book about the whole experience. And I read that. I read it. And it's wild. But a lot of the stuff I'm talking about today, like I got from his book. So according to his book, nothing significant happened like in his upbringing. He said that he grew up in a quiet, safe neighborhood in Queens, New York, where for the most part, like nothing really happened. Gil would say that during his childhood, there was like a lot of trips to theme parks. He had a lot of friends. He was popular in school, which at first he said like in elementary school and whatnot, he wasn't popular. Like he was really quiet. But then as he got older, he became popular in school. But he got really good grades and he played baseball. At the age of 11, Gil said that he started getting those sexual fantasies that boys start to experience, you know, around this age. But he said that his fantasies were a little different. He found himself to be interested in bondage and S&M stuff. Yeah, like 11. All right. Good for him. You know, he didn't know why he was interested in these things, but the interest chose him. He didn't choose the interest. So Gil said he would always fantasize about girls and like imagine them tied up. And like that's just what he was into. So he ended up going to Archbishop Malloy High School, private Catholic high school. He got in on like a partial scholarship, I think for baseball. Like he was really good at it. And then when he was there, he played on the baseball team. He said, it was the 90s. And like a lot of kids in the 90s, he was introduced to the internet. AOL specifically.
Welcome.
This was an exciting time. AOL, it was so fun. He said he would log in like many of us did, go into chat rooms, pretend to be someone else, be like ASL. And nobody knew who he was online. He could be whoever he wanted. I mean, it was fun. It was exciting. And again, he would often end up in like chat rooms just talking to random people. So like most kids in the beginning, you know, it was fun, exciting chat rooms and all that. And then naturally, everyone ends up, you know, you end up looking at porn. And what I'm getting at is that he found porn for the first time. Now this was exciting. Naked people, he's like, I'm in. So on his free time, just surfing the web. But during high school is when Gil said that he kind of like he fell in love for like the first time. He met a girl named Melanie. So him and Melanie became good friends, and he wanted more, but you know, she didn't feel the same way. And according to Gil, again in his book, he went in on his book. There are so many paragraphs about what he liked to jerk off to. I was like, wow, he's really just sharing this. All right. In this book, he would say that he was fantasizing about this girl all the time. And when he would fantasize about her, it was always, you know, intense. He was thinking about her like tied up, gagged, helpless. It was like a lot. And he even said, like in his mind, she was always in all sorts of peril. And then he would fantasize about her being cooked and eaten, as one does, you know, as one does. And this is just what he was into. He's like, yeah. So around this time, he found more intense like bondage scenarios online. He liked looking at pictures of women being held against their will, and he would bust one out over it. Just, all right, you know, shit, I don't know what to say. And I'm not here to kink shame. Not here to kink shame. It's just what he was into. So he finishes high school and he ends up going to college, and he gets, I think he gets a degree in psychology, and then he picks criminal justice as his second major, and he goes to like the University of Maryland in 2006. So Gil would say, you know, during his college classes, it was difficult to focus because the girls there were just gorgeous. And it was really funny to me because in his book, he went on to say what he did not do. Let me tell you. Like he said, he would not sit in class and daydream about how he wished he could be hog-tying and gagging every good-looking woman in the room. He did not. That's what he said in the book. And then he also said that he did not go around looking at beautiful women while secretly imagining them trussed up like a turkey or roasting on a rotisserie. No, he didn't do any of that, he said. I was like, all right, sure. Okay. All right. But he did not do that. Gil did well in college. He said that he had a typical college experience. He would go to parties. He would hang out with friends. He played pranks on people like all the guys did, you know. And he hooked up with girls. According to him, though, like, he didn't have sex with anyone. He just, like, messed around with girls. But he never had, like, sexual relations with anyone. During fall semester of his junior year, he was living in a dorm with a kid they called Rain Man. That was like his nickname. And I guess Rain Man had a variety of porn DVDs, like a big collection, okay? And this is where Gil was like introduced to different fantasies he didn't even know existed. So this got him curious and really just wanting more. So he started like searching for this stuff on the internet. There was one he specifically mentioned. It was like this porn DVD where it was like this lady, she's living and then she dies and she goes to hell and then she gets like gangbanged by like Satan's helpers or something. And he was like, this one did it for me. It was like, okay. All right. So he's searching the web looking for more, right? And he comes across this website called Mookie's. I think it's Mookie's Kitchen. Not sponsored. It's like a fetish website, but it's based around cannibalism. Yeah. And it's like this website where he's first introduced to something like this, the whole cannibalism situation. So this was like the first intro to something like this. He thought it was like just something in his imagination that maybe he made up. You know, he just didn't know that this genre existed. So this website kind of led him to more and more websites with cannibal-related porn and also message boards. And it's the message boards where he got an intro into like people writing fictional stories about their sexual fantasies. Creative writing sessions, you could say. He said that some of the stories that stuck out to him were gory and involved fantasies of kidnapping and cooking non-consensual victims. So Gil said after discovering these websites, he no longer worried like if there was anything wrong with him, you know, like that kind of guilt and shame, because it made him realize that there were other people out there who were into this as well, you know, and it was like, oh, cool, like I'm kind of normal, you know. But still at this point, you know, he kept this all secret. He never like shared his fantasies with anyone, and he just kept all this to himself. So in the middle of his senior year of college, he like left for the weekend to go back to New York and take the NYPD exam. You know, he decided that he wanted to work for the police department after he graduated college. Well, he ended up doing really well and passing. So that's great, I think. So after college, he ended up like moving back to New York, and he lived with his father while he continued like the application process to work for NYPD. Oh, no! Why, eyeliner gods? Why? Okay, don't panic. It comes right off. Okay, great. Part of this process of like working for NYPD, they had to do like a psychological exam. And also they had to do, or he had to do like a face-to-face evaluation with a psychologist, you know, to make sure that he's mentally well enough to work for the police department. So Gil, of course, he said, of course, like he didn't bring up his fetishes and stuff because he didn't see a reason as to why he should. Understandable. So while going through the hiring process, he was still looking up, you know, his cannibal related pornography. And then I guess he started like using Facebook to seek out pictures of women he knew in like sexy clothing or bikinis for his own visual fantasies. During his police trainings, it was said that they would send like all the rookies to like really rough parts of the neighborhood to like patrol and learn. And, you know, it was a high stress job. It was rough, but he made it through. So on his downtime when he wasn't working, you know, he's still visiting his favorite sites and a lot of different forums. And there was one that he visited like all the time because daily there were new photos uploaded and new stories, and it was like very exciting, and he always had something to like get off to, you know? Then Gil said he like considered contributing and like writing some things on these forums, but he would dismiss it, thinking like if anyone found it, it would be really embarrassing and it just seemed way too risky. So in 2009, Gil created a dating profile on eHarmony and OKCUPID because he had heard from like the guys at work that, you know, it was successful for them. And he's like, okay, maybe it'll work out for me. So he said he went on a couple of dates, but then he ended up like getting ghosted. Yeah, it happens. And at this point in 2009, he had been working for the NYPD for like 3 years now. But he was ready to find a partner and, you know, maybe something more, you know, but it was hard. Still, after work, he would browse the web and do his thing there. And eventually it led him to this website called the Dark Fetish Network, or DFN. Now, I guess it was like the intro to DFN that really got him excited. This is what it says, I guess. I didn't check. I didn't want to like put it on my computer. But the intro to it says like, welcome to the social network where you won't feel like an outcast because of your dark fetish. Why? Because this place is created by people like you for people like you. Isn't that like a logo for something, saying for something else? Like PBS?
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you.
Anyways, so feel free to look around, meet some crazy, in a good way, people, and become part of our growing adults-only 18+ community. Please also remember that this place is about fantasies only, so play safe. So Gil sees this and he's like, hell yeah, I'm in. So he creates a profile. And you know, when you create a profile, you have to make a username. So Gil created a profile on DFN with the username Girl Meat Hunter. Girl Meat Hunter. Like girl meat hunter. So that's good. Could only go up from here, really, huh? So he wrote in his bio that he was interested in fantasies involving kidnapping, bondage, and cannibalism. This is a side note, but this is the part that kind of made me like, there's a lot of parts that made me kind of like, but this part was uncomfortable because what they do on the site, and it's normal for them to do this on the site, is that they would pull pictures or photos of people from Facebook, like usually chicks, and then they would post it on this website and with the question, what would you do to her? And then people in the comment section would share like their scenarios, their fantasies around what they would do with the person in the photo or what they would do to the person in the photo. You know, it was like their dark sexual fantasies. And again, it's just fantasy, but some of it was like really gory and shit too, where it was like, I want to slit her throat and let her bleed out and then eat her flesh. And it's like, it's cute and all until it's your photo that's being used. You know? It's like, shit. Ugh. But I guess that's what they do on there. But Gil really liked this because he was pulling photos off of Facebook anyways before all this and like using it for his own fantasies. So now it was kind of like acceptable because everyone else was doing it. So again, it was like this whole thing that made Gil really start engaging more with this website because he was taking a lot of photos from Facebook and like people that he actually knew, like he was personally friends with. He would take their photos. He would go on DFN and post, again, asking the people like, what would you do with her? And again, comments would be filled with like, people's dark fantasies. All right. All right. During this time, Gil had his routine. He was living at his father's. He was working a lot. He was going on dates occasionally and then spending his free time on DFN or like other fantasy websites. Same thing, different day, you know? So again, 2009, Gil's on these dating websites and he ends up meeting a woman named Kathleen on OKCUPID. Now, by this point, Gil is 25 and, according to him, still a virgin. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, you know, he's kind of like ready to get it over with. Anywho, so he meets Kathleen and she was like new in town and was working with Teach for America at an elementary school in New York. Okay, so they connect, they meet, whatever. They decide to go on their first date, which they went out to dinner and just like see a movie, and the two really hit it off. According to Kathleen, Gil seemed to be a very nice, positive, she said moon-faced cop. And I was like, what does that mean, moon-faced? But I think she means literally like moon-faced, like round, I think. I don't know. Anyways, but they liked each other and they became inseparable. Gil said after their first date, Kathleen became the new starring role in his fantasies. Again, this was all in his book. This is what he said. He said, like, he would imagine her being chloroformed and kidnapped and then laid out on a platter with an apple in her mouth. He did not hold back in this book. I was like, all right. Okay. Now, of course, he did not share this with her. He didn't want to freak her out. He knew it'd be too much. But a couple of weeks after dating, the two became official. Woo! Gil's got a girlfriend, finally. After a year of dating, they moved in together into he said, a small, overpriced Manhattan apartment. And they extended their family, and they got a bulldog because Kathleen loved bulldogs. Her college mascot was a bulldog, so she was a big fan. And so they got a dog. And then, as many do, you know, they got into their routine as a couple. Kathleen would later say that these early years of their relationship were fun. They laughed all the time. He was chivalrous. How do you say that word? Chivalrous. You know what I'm trying to say, but he like pulled out chairs and stuff. He used that. He opened doors. Chivalry. Anyways, he was nice. She said, like, you know, she didn't know about his online curiosities and, like, there was nothing really to know. Not yet, at least. And according to Gil, he treated women respectfully, never threatened anyone, and didn't even have sex until he met Kathleen. So, January 2011. Kathleen finds out she's pregnant. That's great, right? I don't know. It is. I mean, she seemed happy. I guess, like, when Gil first heard that she was pregnant, he kind of, like, freaked out and was like, we can't do this. he was thinking like financially. He's like, I don't know if we can like actually freaking do this, right? It's scary. It freaked him out a bit. Obviously, not the response you want when you're telling your partner, like, I'm pregnant, and they're like, wah. So it was like kind of disappointing, but him and Kathleen sat down and they like went through everything and were like, we can make this work and we're gonna make it work. Gave each other pep talks, whatever. But, you know, they were gonna do it, and they would. So after having this conversation and realizing that he could do it financially and all that stuff, he really welcomed the idea and was like looking forward to this next chapter in his life. In Gil's book, he said that he was constantly working, trying to like find a place where they could start their family. He borrowed money from his retirement or something like that to make sure that like they would have the best of everything for the baby. Plus, he said that he was like reading all these books about parenting because he wanted to be the best parent that he could. And I was reading that and kind of like rolling my eyes. I was like, sure, buddy. You want to believe him, but like, okay, sure. Because on the other hand, Kathleen, you know, she did interviews and stuff, and she said that Gil never really seemed to adjust to their expanding life. She said that like Gil never really seemed interested in her or her pregnancy, and that he would just kind of like walk around the apartment just sighing, like being mopey, and that he just seemed miserable, really. Kathleen said that she felt like she was wasting his time or something. Like, damn, sorry for the inconvenience, sir. Regardless, you know, a baby was on the way. So the two, they moved into like a bigger apartment in Forest Hills. And then they welcomed their baby girl in September of 2011. I'm just looking a little too natural. I need a thicker concealer. So just because he now had a baby girl does not mean that he was going to stop with his interest, you know. He was still playing around on DFN. And at this point, he became like pretty well known on the website. I guess Gil was a pretty good writer, and people really liked to read his fantasies, you know, the stories. And he even had like friends that he would chat with all the time on the website, you know, internet friends and all that jazz. Great. The following year, Gil would end up taking like an exam to become a sergeant at NYPD, you know, make some more money as well. And Kathleen would become a full-time stay-at-home mom. Then, like, this was a big year for him. He got like the job. Kathleen became a stay-at-home mom, and then the two of them ended up getting married because they weren't married yet. So on the outside, like all of these stories we talk about here, everything just seemed fine and dandy, right? But Kathleen, again, would later say that, like, yeah, the wedding was nice, but the marriage was not. Gil worked late at the police department, which, you know, if you got a new baby, that shit's hard. Because, like, it made Kathleen just feel like she was raising a baby on her own, which she, like, pretty much was. And she said, like, when Gil did get home, it's not like he was available to help, so things were a little tense. Kathleen also said that there was, like, no intimacy in the relationship either after the baby came, you know, and that, like, she said, like, whenever they tried to get intimate, it's not funny. It's just like, I'm saying, we just know so much about this guy. But she said whenever they tried to get intimate, Gil, he couldn't finish. And, like, he would get up and, like, run to the bathroom when he couldn't finish, I guess, and just, like, leaving her alone. It was just awkward, uncomfortable, and kind of weird. Yeah, that would make you feel some type of way. Because you feel like it's you. You're like, is it me? Like, am I the problem? After a while, I guess, like, Gil would just avoid her completely. When he came home from work, he'd just play video games. He would watch TV or just be on the internet until, like, 3, 4, sometimes 5 in the morning. Poor thing. That sucks. You know, Gil would say that, like, he was tired, which is valid. Like, he would have a really high stress job working for the police department, and then he would get off at like super late at night, and then he just didn't have the energy to like come home and be a dad, I guess, or like participate in much of anything. And that's fair, but it's not right. A little bit more concealer, just a little bit. So, okay, what is this leading all up to? Well, let me tell you. One day, Gil's computer wasn't working. He had like his own computer, not working right. So until he can get it fixed, he asked his wife, like, if he could use hers. He would say, you know, since he's using his wife's computer, he knew, like, I should not be logging into any of these freaky websites or do anything weird because she'll find out, whatever. So he avoids it for a bit, because as the days go on, Gil is just getting those, he needs his fix, essentially. He can't resist anymore. So he eventually logs into his fetish websites, but on her computer. Now this would be a very big mistake because he forgets to like close all of his tabs when he was done. And you know, we go looking. I would. So Kathleen, she goes to use her computer and, you know, she opens it up. She's like, yay. And voila, there's images of like women tied up with a ball gag in the mouth. And if you've never seen this or weren't expecting this, it might be a lot to take in. You might be like, what am I looking at? What? I'd be like, what? She goes to the website where the picture's from, and she learns like exactly what she's looking at. Kathleen would later say like it was disturbing and that she knew like S&M was popular. She was thinking like 50 Shades of Grey, but like she would say this, what she was looking at was a lot different, because like what she was looking at when she went to this webpage was the girl on the front page was dead. Like staged, I think. Let's hope. But the girl on the front page was dead. So yeah, it was a little much. It was different, is what she was getting at. I think I can agree there. It was definitely a little different. So up until discovering this website, Kathleen, you know, kind of sad, but like she thought maybe she was the problem in the relationship. She's thinking like, maybe if I cooked and cleaned more, dressed sexy, I don't know, like maybe Gil would want her. I was saying like she's putting it on herself. Like maybe she could fix whatever was going on. But she said once she stumbled across this website, she knew like, okay, cleaning more isn't going to do the trick. Well, after what she saw, she's like, I know I have to talk to Gil. Like she's got to figure out exactly what's going on, right? So she had approached him. I don't know how. I don't think it matters. But she like was like, we need to talk, look. And she told him the truth. She's like, I saw this website, you know, and she told him that she wasn't here to judge. Like she wanted to know how she could actually help. Like maybe they could go shopping for like a sex toy or something. Like was there something they could do to spice up their sex life? You know, that was a conversation, which is great actually, right? And Kathleen was really hoping that this conversation would be like a breakthrough for them. And at least at first, it kind of came off that way because Gil seemed really excited at the idea of Kathleen like participating in his fantasies. But at the end of the day, Kathleen wasn't really sure about how she was feeling about it all. Like still something just really didn't sit right with her. She couldn't stop thinking about like what she saw online and stuff, right? I guess at first she straight up thought he was like having an affair. He wasn't, but she didn't know that. So Kathleen decided to install spyware onto his computer to like see what he was doing when she wasn't paying attention. So she installs the spyware, and like from her phone or computer, she could see what he was doing on his computer. So literally the next day, she was able to see all of the websites that Gil was visiting. And he was visiting a lot. Girls in a Bind, FetLife. It was a lot. I know at first for research, I was like, what's Girls in a Bind? Because I was thinking like girls who were like I'm in a bind. What do I do? Like, oh no, I'm in a bind. But it's not that. You know? Okay, great. But he was busy. Really busy. All of these websites are like BDSM, fetish, fantasy websites. So Kathleen is like seeing this and she's realizing that, you know, maybe he's way more into these things than she thought. She also sees like some instant message chats. It was like Yahoo Messenger that Gil was having with people. So she clicked and she like opened these messages, and that's when she gets real spooked because she opens up this message and she's staring at like a picture of herself there's in the chat, and there's pictures of her friends, and there's pictures of like people she knew, and she was like, what the fuck is happening? So she's like kind of like, what? So then she searches for her name in Gil's email, and what she saw, I guess, was just like completely overwhelming to her. Kathleen said that she saw emails between Gil and someone else, which we'll get into later, but someone else, and they were going into great detail about what they were going to do to her specifically. In one of the emails, it said that they were going to tie her up by her feet, have her throat slit, and that they would, quote, have fun watching the blood gush out, end quote. Then going on to say that if she cried out, that they wouldn't listen and they would not give her mercy. So if you think about it, and like if you found that your husband's having these conversations about you, that they're gonna like, you know, slit your throat, blah, 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 fucking run, right? Like this is different. This felt real. So Kathleen is very spooked, I think for a good reason, right? So she realizes that she needs some space. She's like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. Because these emails, they look real. Like they were really planning on doing this to her. That's how she's processing it. And now she has a baby to take care of. She's like, I gotta get out of here, right? So she calls up her parents and is like, I'm coming to you guys. She books a flight to Nevada. Her and her baby, they go stay with her parents for a bit. Now this was devastating to Gil, I guess. But whatever, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, y'all. So she's at her parents' house in Nevada. And, you know, while she's there, she's like, I'm going to check that spyware again and see, like, what he's doing. And she's like, all right. Like, she sees that Gil is still doing the most. She came across a trove of S&M pictures of women being tortured and sexually assaulted. And on top of that, Gil was Googling how to kidnap a woman. And also he was Googling human meat recipes. Yes, human meat recipes. All right. You know, I was like, I'm sure there's a lot out there. It's the internet. But good luck to him with that, I guess. I don't know what to say. So, I mean, based off his Google searches, it seems like he's planning to do stuff, right? Right. So the more she's looking into what he's doing, the just worse it gets. Kathleen comes across tons of files with like photos of more than 80 different women that Gil had like downloaded from Facebook and other websites. And a lot of them, like, he knew, she knew. And then there were like email conversations Gil was having with 3 different people. He met them like on one of the fetish websites. But they were discussing various ways that he might kidnap, rape, kill, and then cook these women. So again, Kathleen was one of the women discussed, and there were like others as well. There was like old friends of hers from work. Gil's supervisor was one of the people that they were fantasizing about. There's a teenage girl who had like just graduated from Gilberto's old high school, and quite a few of his college friends. Gil had wrote about one of these college friends saying, quote, I'll be eyeing her from head to toe and licking my lips, longing for the day I cram a chloroform-soaked rag in her face. Yeah. So again, like Gil was very active. He was chatting with like 24 different users about kidnapping, raping, torturing, killing, and cannibalizing more than 100 different women. So Gil was chatting with 3 people outside of the fetish websites. Like they were more personal friends type of thing. And then on DFN, he was chatting with 24 different users. And with these people, it was kind of like the same thing, but he was talking about kidnapping, raping, torturing, killing, and cannibalizing more than 100 women. In 21 of those 24 conversations, Gil made it clear that what he was saying was only fantasy. He had wrote to one of them like, no matter what I say, it's make-believe. It's just a world that I have in my mind. And that's fair. That's valid, right? People are allowed to fantasize, right? Yeah, okay. It's uncomfortable, but people are allowed to think. But there were 3 other conversations he was having where it seemed to be more sincere. He was giving off the impression that this was something that he like actually wanted to do, and it was not necessarily just a fantasy. So Kathleen sees these messages, right? And they're very concerning to her because they seem like he's actually going to do something. So what does she do? She contacts authorities. I think she contacts the FBI. And, she presents them with these messages because they're very concerning and they seem to be sincere. Plus, she's like, am I about to get kidnapped and freaking murdered? October 24th, 2012, a group of FBI agents, they go to Gil's apartment on Forest Hill. They're going to arrest him. So they want to lure him out of his place and get him into the hallway. I don't know why. Why do they do that? Can they not just arrest them when they're in the house? I guess not. I need to look into that. It doesn't matter because they want to lure him out. So one of the FBI agents, they called his phone and they said that his car that was parked outside had been hit. So Gil, obviously, if your car's hit, you're going to be like, oh my God, my car's hit. Let me go outside and check it out. So he gets out of his place. He walks out in his sweats and he's met with FBI agents. I guess the FBI had placed their hand on Gil's shoulder and was like, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. And Gil responded by saying I don't think so. He knew what was up, I think. So Gil was placed under arrest for conspiracy to kidnap. And he sat in jail for 5 months awaiting trial. So while he's sitting in there, details start coming out. You start coming to light about what he was doing. And it was painting a picture or a story of a husband who was secretly plotting to abduct several women all at once. Well, not all at once, but abduct several women, do horrible things to them, and it included his own wife. So in their investigation, the FBI had singled out specific emails where Gil was coming up with a strategy on how he was going to do these kidnappings. But also there were emails where he was negotiating payment for the kidnappings. So that's intent, On top of that, the FBI, they also looked at his work computer where they found searches for different women, using the software available to him as a law enforcement officer. So he's using his work shit to look women up. You get it. Uh-oh. Not good. So once the media got wind of this story, they were all over it, right? Because it's freaking bizarre. Gil was quickly named the Cannibal Cop. Very catchy. So prosecutors, they had found his DFN, account. Again, girl meat hunter. And they saw that he had quite the following. And on top of that, they saw that he was directly messaging different members using Yahoo Messenger and exchanging emails filled with photos and stories about what they were going to do to these women in the photos and that they were sharing. And it was just graphic. It was very graphic. So the FBI, they honed in on 3 specific people Gil was talking with. So one of the guys that he was talking to was a 22-year-old car mechanic from southern New Jersey, and his name was Michael Van Hise. So that's one of the guys. Another guy was a British man, and he had the username Moody Blues. The FBI, they later identified him as Dale Bollinger, or Bollinger. Dale. And then there was another man named Ali Khan, who was apparently logging on from Pakistan. So these were his main buddies. In January of 2012, Gil had emailed Michael Van Hise photos of a woman named Alicia. Now, this girl, Alicia, she was friends with Kathleen. They had worked together at one point. And this guy, Michael, had offered to kidnap her for Gil. And Gil, in return, offered $5,000 for the kidnapping to happen. Gil even said, in an email, I'm putting my neck out on the line here. If anything goes wrong, I'm in deep shit. So $5,000, and you need to make sure that she is not found because she will definitely make the news. So again, to anybody reading this, you're going to think this is real, right? It sounds like he's going to do this. So around the same time, Gil was chatting with this guy, Ali Khan, and he was suggesting that he could take Kathleen on a trip to India where the two of them would kill her and prepare her for dinner. Gil sent Ali Khan a photo of Kathleen in a bikini, and he wrote, like, "We will take turns with her." And they also discussed killing one of Gil's college friends named Andrea. And Gil had wrote, like, "Oh, it's personal with Andrea. She will absolutely suffer." Gil had told this guy, Ali Khan, that he was constructing a pulley apparatus in his basement to string her up by her feet. So, not great. In summer of 2012, Gil had spent a lot of his time talking with this guy, Moody Blues. They seemed to, like, really hit it off and be BFFs. Gil was, like, bragging to this Moody Blues guy that his oven was big enough to fit a victim in it if, like, he just, like, folded their legs. And then he told this Moody Blues guy that Gil, had a place in the mountains where no one was around for, like, 3/4 of a mile. And they, like, could bring a woman of their choice there and just, like, do whatever they wanted with her. And they, like, settled on one of Gil's college friends named Kimberly. So, I mean, you know, it didn't stop there. Gil went on to, like, plan even more details, saying, like, once she's dead, we could take her out and, like, properly butcher her body and, like, cook the meat, and that she could be out on a rotisserie as well. So, okay. Gil later emailed Moody Blues a short Word document, and this document was titled "Abducting and Cooking Kimberly, a Blueprint." So, of course, when the authorities find this, they're like, great, like, this is, like, this is evidence, obviously, right? But in this document, like, he listed materials that he would need to, like, get this job done. On the list was, like, a car, chloroform, rope, a gag. And then, like, next to the gag, it was like, do I need duct tape? And then a tarp or plastic bags to protect the trunk from any DNA remains. And then they would need more bags for Kimberly's clothes and also cheap sneakers. So it's like this whole list. Again, like, Gil used the NYPD database to search for detailed information of different women he knew and who were, like, the target of his discussion. The searches typically included basic information like their home address, their date of birth, height, weight, eye color, criminal records, like, you know, everything. And prosecutors, they saw this as further evidence that Gil's plans were more than just fantasy. Like, he was going to take things a step further. But there was technically no physical evidence from Gil's apartment that suggested he was getting ready to kidnap or cook anyone. Like, there was no large oven, or his oven, he had an oven, but, like, it wasn't large enough to fit a human. There was no, like, cleaver, and there was no chloroform found. I don't think they found, like, ropes or anything either. You know, there's just, like, nothing. Prosecutors also had no proof Gil even had a place in the mountains. So, was it all just fantasy, or was this real? I don't know. Well, on the afternoon of December 31st, 2012, a forensic psychiatrist, his name was Park Dietz. I thought it was kind of funny. Park Dietz. It's a good name. But this guy, he's a doctor, right? He went to downtown to the Manhattan Detention Center to conduct a psychiatric examination of Gil. Gil's lawyers felt that they needed a forensic psychiatrist to weigh in on, like, the question of, again, like, how real is his web persona, or, like, how real it might become. They needed a doctor to weigh in. So the doctor already knew, like, from Gil's NYPD file that he had been given the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. Yeah, I was like, what is this? I'm interested. I guess it's a widely used psychological assessment tool designed to evaluate personality traits and psychopathology. Psychopathology. Sometimes it's used, like, as a part of the hiring process or for, like, assessing the psychological fitness of employees, particularly in high stress or safety sensitive jobs. You know, it helps ensure that the individuals are, like, psychologically suitable for specific roles. In other words, NYPD, you know? So they give them this test. So according to Dr. Dietz, this assessment MMPI situation, it showed that there was really nothing like psychologically wrong with Bozo Gil. And he's like, that's not really something I run into very much. He's like, usually there's something off. So over the course of 3 days and like 18 hours of interviews with Dr. Dietz, I love it, Dr. Dietz, it's so good. But Gil, like, you know, during this interview had openly discussed everything about like his sex life. He went all the way back, starting with, you know, the traditional Catholic school situation, told him everything. Dr. Dietz said that he remembered Gil was not like ashamed or embarrassed or anything about masturbation, which if you read his book, Gil's book, it's very clear he's not embarrassed because he likes to talk about it a lot. But okay, so he's not ashamed or embarrassed or anything, but he did say that Gil was like more introverted and shy around people, especially women. Investigators asked Dr. Dietz, when Gil started sharing his interests with strangers online, was it possible that the danger and risk only made it more exciting to Gil? You know, was it harder for him to stop? Or like, would it escalate into action? That's really like the bigger question, the question everyone wants an answer to. Like, is this going to escalate? Dr. Dietz responded by saying that he could understand how the evidence that was presented could be construed in that way, but that he had seen him as like many, many steps removed from the kind of person that might start to take action. In other words, he didn't believe that Gil was going to take action. It was just all fantasy. Dr. Dietz said that he searched for evidence of something in Gil's personality that would show like he would escalate his fantasies to the next level. He was looking for something like past actions or aggressive actions and character flaws that would say to him, the doctor, like, oh, I'm a monster secretly, I don't know. But like he couldn't find anything. There was no red flags. And then Dr. Dietz said that if Gil actually did end up doing something and like harming a woman, he would immediately be identified because like Gil used a computer that had a traceable IP address and he was messy, in other words, which I was like, why do you even say that? Like that, I don't think that necessarily matters. A lot of killers are messy, but whatever. But even Gil's repeated web searches for chloroform recipes or like looking up the addresses of women that he fantasized about did not concern Dr. Dietz. And I forgot to mention, but like this doctor was like well respected, many, many years being this amazing doctor. And he's like worked with Jeffrey Dahmer and shit like that. So, you know, that's why like him saying it wasn't concerning was kind of taken seriously. Because at first I was like, who is this doctor? F this guy. So Dr. Dietz essentially said like, look, this is just a guy who has a fetish. And the only thing he's going to do is repeatedly go back and look at the same pictures of like certain women wearing certain undergarments. And like, that is that. Like, he's not really going to do anything else other than that. All in all, Dr. Dietz's conclusion was that Gil's thoughts were unpleasant, you know, sure. But they were not necessarily, I don't know, anything more than thoughts. He even said that like, Dr. Dietz said like, Gil's like the nicest guy you'd ever meet. Dr. Dietz said pretty much that he found it troubling that just because Gil had like a desire, you know, a fantasy, doesn't mean like that they're actually going to do it. And the fact that people were unable to like separate the two, I guess, like recognize it as that. Do you know what I'm saying? You get it, right? Gil goes to trial February of 2013. And there seemed to be like two different cases that were being argued. There was the actual charge against Gil, which was conspiracy to kidnap. And then there was like the thing that what Gil might do in the future if he were allowed to go free. Now, according to his lawyers, what made the case against Gil unique was that all of the evidence that was being used against him, they were based on his thoughts and his fantasies. Let me do my lip liner. Hold on. So much of the prosecution's case ended up being about the emails that Gil's lawyers decided not to put the psychiatrist Dr. Dietz on, or Gil, on the stand. His lawyers believed more questions about Gil's fetish would only distract from like the overall conspiracy charges, which they believed they were completely flimsy. So Gil's attorney said that yes, his conversations and his interests were disturbing and to some disgusting, but at the end of the day, they were not criminal. And like nothing illegal happened. Gil's DFN profile even stated, it said in his profile that he was just fantasizing. And Gil's defense lawyer even pointed specifically to like there was a certain email or something where Gil was discussing that he was going to kidnap 3 different women on President's Day. And like his defense lawyer was like, see, President's Day, it came and went and like nothing happened. If he was going to do it, he would have done it, right? So like fantasy. Meanwhile, the prosecution depicted Gil as reckless and out of control. They brought up the fact that, Gil was using the NYPD database to search for different women's addresses. And like this was proof that he was planning to move things into action. So the prosecutor kind of gave the jurors something to think about. A pretty good like argument. The prosecutor was like, think about your favorite restaurant. He's like, just envision it. If you were to find out that the chef at this restaurant had a fantasy of poisoning all the people in the restaurant, and night after night he was engaging in conversations with other people about how he could poison the restaurant goers at his restaurant. He would go online, he was looking up different poisons, and he was communicating with people the names of certain other people who would like come into his restaurant all the time. And if you found out about that and the chef was like, oh, well, it was just fantasy, like I was just kidding, would you continue to eat at that restaurant? Of course you wouldn't. And I was like, points were made. I was like, okay. Yeah, that's true. So look, the trial lasted for a little over a month. And then on March 12th, the jury came back and found Gil guilty. Gil was convicted of conspiring to kidnap, cook, and devour his wife, as well as like several other women. He was also convicted on a second count that involved illegally gaining access to a law enforcement database that the government said that he used to conduct research for or on potential victims. Many of Gil's team and family members were there and they watched the whole thing, right? And they really disagreed with the verdict. They were saying that it was a thought prosecution and that the jury couldn't get past the thoughts, and that he was guilty of nothing more than having very unconventional thoughts, and that the government should not be in our heads. Now, let me tell you, this is what really like got me like going, because I was like, oh my God, valid, right? It's confusing because a lot of the stuff he was saying online and stuff, uncomfortable, scary, whatever, but like, technically he didn't do anything. Anyways, in a later interview, one of the jury members like had come out and said that they believed that his fantasy was going to step into reality, going on to say like it was kind of similar to an addict who needs a larger and larger dose, and that he was progressing. Gil ended up appealing the conviction shortly after the verdict. The defense asked the appeal judge to find Gil not guilty. And more than a year later, in like June of 2014, the judge ended up overturning the charge, saying that there was not enough evidence to support it. Gil was released from prison in July of 2014. It was like 21 months after his arrest. Then the following year, the Second Circuit affirmed the decision to overturn the conviction. So in its ruling, the panel also reversed Gil's conviction on the charge that he had illegally gained access to the law enforcement database. That part didn't make sense to me because like he did do that. He said he did that. And like, isn't that illegal? So why wasn't that upheld? I don't know, but it got reversed. So Gil was cleared of all criminal charges. Now, Gil's public defender said that the ruling was a very important victory, not just for Gil, but for an open society that treasures freedom of thought and expression, right? I know, aren't you kind of like low-key torn because you're like, yeah, but, like, I don't know. But listen, because something good did come from this, because the FBI, like, they got a bunch of information when they were searching or following, like, what Gil was doing. So on, like, January 4th, 2013, the FBI, they arrested that guy, Michael Van Nuys, whatever his name is, at his home in Hamilton, New Jersey. Again, he was 22 years old, and he admitted to the police that he had, like, violent sexual fantasies. Some of them were involving children. So he got caught and arrested for this. And his wife, because he was married, she was like, no, he's a big teddy bear, you know, like, no. But she also said that she was aware of his interests and his fetishes before they got married, and that she was, quote, cool with it. She told reporters that, like, yeah, it's disturbing, but she accepted her partner's flaws, and, like, he wasn't perfect, but neither was she. Okay, I don't know. All right. He got arrested. And then in April of 2013, Michael Van Nuys had provided some information to the FBI. And the FBI arrested 2 more men who had been chatting with one another on that DFN website. One of them, his name was Richard Meltz. He was a 65-year-old police chief in Bedford, Massachusetts. And then there was another older gentleman named Robert Ashe. He was 61 years old and a former librarian at a high school. Now, this librarian guy, he previously had been arrested because he was accused of inappropriately touching 4 male students. But then, like, the charges got dropped, whatever. Unlike Gil, these 2 men, Robert Ashe, the 61-year-old former librarian, and Robert Meltz, the 65-year-old police chief, they had crossed the line. Both of them had met with an undercover agent, like they didn't know it was a setup. But Robert Ashe had brought a bag with him to this meeting, and in the bag was a taser, a meat hammer, skewers, and a dental retractor. What's a dental retractor? Let me look this up. What's a dental retractor? What was he going to do with that? I don't know. Ew. Anyways, he brought all this with him. And it was clear to, like, the investigators that these 2, they were obviously ready to take their fantasies to, like, the real world. So both of them were arrested and, like, put on trial. So in 2013, Dale Bollinger, whatever the fuck, the guy Moody Blues, he said in an interview that all of his conversations with Gil were, again, just fantasy, and that he was really stupid for putting these things online. But Dale, Mr. Bollinger, whatever, was arrested in November of 2013 by British authorities for sexual grooming. Yes, he was. He had planned to meet up with a 14-year-old girl, I think it was, a 14-year-old. He had bought, like, an axe before the meeting and brought it with him when he was gonna meet this person. But I guess the emails were, like, something about chopping this victim's head off, and then he bought the axe. So again, it was, like, intent to do shit. You understand, right? He got arrested. I guess that's why I say, like, there is kind of a bright side, because at least, like, these guys all got caught, like, and the authorities got them before they actually did some fucked up shit. Afterwards, Gil tried to get custody of his daughter, or at least, like, visitation, but ended up dropping the case because there was, like, too many legal fees that he couldn't afford. Since then, like, in 2017, Gil had done interviews, you know, defending himself, going on to say, like, people, they don't choose the things that they're aroused by. Everyone has their own things, and people don't choose it. He said in the interview, like, yes, the stuff I put online was odd and, like, weird and shit, but, like, it was completely fictional writing.
It's very graphic, brutal stuff. It was never anything real. It was all fictional.
But you were a cop.
But people don't choose the things they're aroused by.
Gil went on to write a memoir called The Raw Deal, The Untold Story of NYPD's Cannibal Cop in 2017. That's what I read. It's wild. Yeah. And then he published another work of fiction in 2018. Yeah, it's titled A Gathering of Evil. And the book's description said that the story follows two young New York women as they are targeted by a group of wealthy and violent sadists who crave to kidnap a young woman and brutally end her life. So keep him busy with the writing, because I don't know. Anyways, that is the wild story about, is it wild? It's different. About Gilberto Valle, the cannibal cop. Now, this story I thought was very interesting because, yes, strange, disturbing. Like if you were his wife, I'm sure a lot of us would do the same thing, contact authorities and whatnot, and be like, dude, my husband's gonna kill me. He's saying it online, right? But like technically he didn't do anything illegal. And he said over and over again it was just fantasies. So it's like, and then when authorities and stuff like went and searched his apartment, they didn't find anything. So it's like, I don't know. It's just like a weird, it's weird. It's weird. Maybe he would have evolved into like doing stuff in real life, but we don't know that. And it's like, are you allowed to be arrested for thoughts and like writing fake shit online? Storytelling. Are you allowed to be arrested for storytelling and fantasy? No, right? But like, I don't know. And then I was looking it up, and like cannibalism, it's legal in 49 states. So it's like, it's not illegal, because if you replace cannibalism with like kids, then it becomes illegal, right? But it's cannibalism and not kids. So it's not illegal. I don't know. I just like go in circles about this because, I don't know. Again, like, it's just an interesting thought, because should someone be tried because of their dark thoughts and their kinks? I'm sure we can all agree, no. But, you know, it's like, no, but it's fine until it involves me. Then it's like, meh, right? Like if it were you that was the target. I was thinking, you know what I was thinking? Okay, let's say he still did all this, whatever. He used everyone's pictures, but what if he used different names for the people in the pictures instead of their real names? Would that have protected him? Because he used their real names, their real information, and like that is what made it seem more real, right? I don't know. It's an interesting thought, right? I'm sure a lot of us have some pretty dark thoughts. Hopefully you don't put them on the internet and stuff. You just like think it in your head and go, nah, never mind. And then you move on with your life. But if you did put it out there, I'm sure like you wouldn't want to be arrested for it because it's just a thought. It's not really something you're doing. But then how do you know this person is not going to actually freaking do it? You just don't know. You don't know. And then let's just say Gil did end up doing something, or maybe he does in a couple of years. And then everyone would point to his internet stuff and be like, see, he's been saying for years he's going to do it. How come nobody arrested him? You can't win with this one, right? Bright side, again, at least like some of the people that Gil was talking to or whatever did end up getting arrested before they did something. So that's good. All right, well, look, I want to hear like what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section. What do you think? Should he be arrested? Should he be in jail? For what though? For his ideas and thoughts? I don't know. You tell me. Let me know down below. Also, I think it's funny. I recreated one of the looks I did. If you've been a longtime viewer, remember I did this look for another cannibal murder mystery I did many moons ago. This is like the cannibal look, I guess. I like it. It's cute. Anywho, I hope you have a good rest of your day. You make good choices. You be safe out there. Please be safe out there. Let me know down below who you want me to talk about next time. If you have any makeup ideas, let me know, because I'm always reading the comment section and I get inspired from you guys. You guys give me ideas. Love ya. Bye.